Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is that you're watching this video. Thanks for subscribing to my channel. Today at the shop I have this really cool Fender Jaguar. This has changed hands in our community here, the town that I live in, from several guitar players that I know. So the guy that owns it now is playing it. We have like 0 fret action here. The gap here is about 4/1000ths of an inch. So we are going to manufacture a new nut. The other thing is that the strings are popping out of the slots when he's playing it. As you can see, it doesn't take much for me to get that out of there. Either direction, the G and the B apparently we're giving him trouble. So we're just going to put a new nut on there. I'm going to use a Tusk nut. I'm going to do a full setup on this thing as best we can and get it back to playing shape. He's not concerned about having shredder action on this thing. He really beats the crap out of this guitar when he plays it, and he wants it to stay in tune, and he's not worried about shredding or being a hot rod up in here. So we'll do a normal setup on this thing. I'm not going to go extra high on it. I think the 20,000ths gap that is needed here at the first fret will make this guitar play a whole lot better. We'll certainly have to do an intonation setup. The other thing we're doing is we're going to put a heavier gauge string on here for him. We're going to use 11, set of 11 Ernie balls. So we'll do that. Kind of interesting, something I noticed is that this pickup pole pieces absolutely don't line up with the strings. The string spacing is completely wrong on that. It's really a strange to look at. To do the work on the nut, we're going to check the frets for wear, and we'll measure that wear and see if it's time for a crown. And we're going to clean up the fretboard and oil it, polish the frets, check all the electronics, make sure everything's working, and he has a knob broke off here. That I am going to do my best to find either a replacement switch or a new knob that I can retrofit onto there so that he can use that. Boy, they're hard to push, so maybe lube those up a bit too. So a lot of work to do on the old Fender Jaguar. Here's another good look at it from a distance. Another little detail about this guitar. I think the guitar was originally white. One of our local guitar heroes here in town sanded the paint off of this guitar and just totally replaced the saddle with a stop tailpiece and saddle. It just kind of, I don't know, the guitar's been altered a lot, but we're not going to restore this thing today. We're just going to get it in working order and replace that nut, get it playable for the current owner. So hang in there, we'll be back with a little bit more detail. On this low E string, he was more complaining about the G and B strings jumping out of the fret slots, and I get that. There's just nothing holding it in there. The slots are not cut deep enough to hold that string in there. But this low E string, you're looking at how that string is wound, and it comes off of here and goes right over to the top of that machine head. If this was wound in a downward motion, and the A string is also wound the same way, we can look at that, and that string goes over the top. All of them, in fact, are wound that way, which is not putting any down pressure here where it passes over the nut of the guitar. There's no down pressure. If I push down on this string, you'll notice that it's putting down pressure. The string is going now in a downward motion versus virtually level. Here's a hint to those of you putting strings on your guitar. Wind them from the top and coil them down. There aren't enough windings on the A string. There needs to be at least 2 to 3 windings on these types of machine heads. And again, all of these strings are run to the top of the machine heads, and again, it's just not putting enough down pressure on those strings. And this G string, we could probably have it, again, we'll look at it from this angle. It's almost no break angle. I push down on it, now it's got an angle. That's why these string trees are here. It's to push that string down, put down pressure on this where it passes through the nut. A little discovery and a little lesson on how to properly wind your strings. Don't do this. This is not a good idea. You want your windings to be nice and tidy. I know that strings get changed at gigs and you're hurrying. Shit happens, but this is not a good policy. You have no down angle on that string when it passes over no break angle when that string passes over the nut. Okay, so on this guitar, you'll notice that the ends of the strings are all dangling out here in the middle of the air. These ends of these strings need to go into the holes in the middle of the slots. I failed to shoot video of a lot of the work that I've done on this guitar thus far. But I have the new nut slots started on this. And I've got the first high E string, the fret action here rolled with 20 thousandths. You can see the distance there. It's not terribly low string action. If he wanted to set this up as a shredder, I would have gone likely with 16 thousandths here. But we're going up at 20 thousandths of an inch distance between the bottom of this high E string and that fret. So that's all the further he has to pull down or push down on the string at the first fret to make that note. I'm going to go a little bit higher on the low E string and A string. They tend to get plowed pretty hard when picking up here, and that can cause some fret buzz. And I know this guy, he hits this thing hard when he plays it, and his songs and his music definitely reflect that. So I'm going to go a little bit higher, and what I mean by that is like 1/1000th of an inch. So I will use, rather than my 20 thousandths gauge, I'll be using a 21 thousandths gauge, and we'll set that up 21 thousandths. And as you can see, it's a feeler gauge. I can feel that string making contact with that feeler gauge. That tells me that that measurement is exactly 20 thousandths. It doesn't lift the string up. I can just feel it. So we'll continue on. I've gotten that nut, nut slot carved. This is an 11 gauge string. I used a 13 thousandths file to cut that slot. I went 2 thousandths over the size of the string, and I'll do that on every consecutive string as we go. So here's our progress thus far. Another discovery I've made is that this low E string, as you can see, has been gouged out by the string and has grooves inside there. Can you see those? I'm hoping you can see those. What I'm going to do is take a file and get rid of those slots. That is a definite busted string eventually, an unnecessarily busted string. So we'll file that down with a saddle file. I'm going to make that correct. Anyway, maybe I could use my new 100-year-old saddle files for that. I don't know. We'll see. Not all carved and all the string spacing correct, and everything's dialed in up here. I just need to take some of the top off of this and file off these edges, corners, so that they're not so sharp. So we'll deal with that here in a few minutes. But while stringing this thing up, I encountered an issue right here. You see what's wrong with that picture? The sleeve that's supposed to hold that in place was on the wrong side of the actual the bridge here. So the intonation on the D string was really bad. So I've scooted that over. I suppose that could happen while doing a string change. You know, these are fairly loose in there. We're doing as close of a setup as I can do. This saddle was replaced on this guitar, the original. It used to sit here and had a whammy bar on it and all that. That's all been removed and changed. So still working on the intonation, but an interesting find on that. I checked the intonation, I was so far off, and the rest of them were pretty close as it is, even with the new nut and all that, so didn't have to do much. The other thing is that the neck relief, after setting the neck flat, with the strings off of the guitar, put these 11s on here, and boy howdy, it's got perfect relief out here in the middle. Got lucky with this one. It did not have to pull the neck to turn the truss rod again. It's got one of these guys. I do have a special wrench for turning that screw without having to pull the neck off. Anyhow, another unique little find, something to look out for. So the interior of this 65 Fender Jag, as my friend Dave Rom would say, what could go wrong? You see this thing's been heavily modded and altered in every way possible. I love this, an Ibanez wrapper from something. Yahoo!
Well, the 65 Jaguar is completely done. Cleaned it up. Made the switches work correctly. Cleaned all the volume pots. Cleaned the output jack. Tightened everything up. Repositioned the pickups to get them aligned. Did a fret polish. We did the truss rod neck relief. Set the string action here at the 17th fret on this Fender. We did 6/64ths, and up at the top end we're about 4/64ths, right in between 4 and 5/64ths. We did a new nut on this guitar, which was really fun. We got string action here at the first fret is 21 thousandths on the low, the bass strings, and we're at 20 thousandths on the treble strings. Guitar sounds great. Has some interesting pickup configurations. Holds tune really well. This guy that owns this guitar is really looking forward to getting this thing back. I think he's going to come pick it up today, so I'm trying to get this demo shot before he arrives. So little few tones and sounds off of this guitar. Switches in the what these switches do is on and off, bridge position off, bridge position on, so they're both on at this point. Neck position off, neck position on, so both pickups are on at this moment, and they're out of phase, so it gets at that kind of quacky, kind of thin sound. We shut this bridge or the neck position off, and we get this a little bit louder. Turn the neck position on by itself. Running through a PV Classic 20 through the clean channel. Not cranking it, running it at 20 watts right now. Keeping it fairly quiet. Throw some gain on there. this guy, again, he's a real hard player. In fact, he broke the guitar just from beating the shit out of the thing, which is awesome. I don't know, he's just very passionate guitarist, and he plays the shit out of this thing and hits it hard. And so my job was to make sure that when this thing is done and set up, that he can beat the shit out of this guitar like he likes to do, and it'll hold tune. And as you can see, I just beat the crap out of it with power chords and bending notes, and then played a soft, simple progression, and the guitar is in perfectly good tune. Pretty damn well perfectly intonated. I'd say a job well done. This thing's ready to go home today. A couple other things we did. We lubed all of the machine heads. I used Big Ben's nut sauce to lubricate those, cleaned them out with some electrical contact cleaner, shot that in there, and drained that out. We got a great evaporating electrical contact cleaner. Shot a shot of WD-40 in there, which breaks down the old grease that they used in these things, and re-lubed the machine heads. They're Klusons. They're not originals, but they are Klusons. Again, the original 65 Jaguar pickup, and a pickup out of a Stratocaster that the original pickup cover was used to make it look almost identical to the original pickup. And obviously this thing's been modified to about south of heaven. Beautiful rosewood neck, real thin fretboard on this with a maple neck. Guitar came in, it was drop D tune.